Loving Heavenly Father, we come to you this hour asking for your blessing and help us as we gather together in this webinar. We pray for guidance in the matters at hand and ask that you would clearly show us how to conduct our work in online distance learning with a spirit of joy and enthusiasm despite this new normal. Give us the desire to find ways to excel in our work. Help us to work together and encourage each other toward excellence. We ask that we motivate and inspire each other on what we share today to reach higher and farther to the best we can be, even amidst these challenging times. We ask this in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Good morning, everyone. Maayong buntag. And it's nice to see friends online near and far in the Philippines. Good evening, perhaps in the US of A. Hi, Dr. Naranjo. Good morning. Good evening, perhaps. And to some of our colleagues here in the academy, maayong buntag, maayong hapon, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. It's nice to see you attending in this first day of June. Today actually marks our first year anniversary of the office of the Seliman Online University Learning. This office is the youngest office in the university and being expedited in the creation of the office because of or in preparation for the preferred future. Today also is the launching of our 2 months long upskilling activities for faculty and staff and the invited community in the academy. Our theme for the June and July upskilling program is from literacy to knowledge deepening, achieving towards a digitally resilient preferred future. Our theme exemplifies the need for us to improve our skill, not just simply on the literacy level, but into knowledge deepening. Today, we will have our opening salvo of topic, the Blended Learning 101, from fully online to limited face-to-face. Immediately after me, my colleague in the office, Assistant Professor Alfie Arcelo, will give us some tips on how to proceed. In the next 1.5 hours, we hope that we could deliver to you and share with you what we have learned and understand in preparation for the preferred future or in the preparation to be more specific for school year 2021-2022. I am Dave Marshall and I am the director for the Office of Seliman Online University Learning. And let me start my sharing. Let me know, technical team, if my slides is visible.
It's okay, sir.
Okay. Okay, my topic, a blended learning 101 from fully online to limited face to face. And in the next 45 minutes, I hope I can share this 5 very quick topics or sharing the mandate, what is really the mandate in when we say limited face to face, challenges and opportunities of this limited face to face. And let's try to revisit what we have learned from the last year's flexible learning. And I'll be sharing with you as a start different models, proven models for blended learning. And towards the end, let's join together as we call for the transition from full online to a limited face-to-face. But before I will go to my sharing, I would like you to participate in this question by going into this. What do you know about the joint memo circular of DOH and the Commission on Higher Education on the gradual reopening of campuses for limited face-to-face? To answer that, I want you to go to, just hold on, I'll stop my sharing so that I can type where to answer. Um, Here, not that one. Let me show my poll everywhere survey so that this is actually in relation to the CMO, the joint CMO of copy response team. Okay, and let me share screen to this one. So to respond, kindly go to paulev.com slash Dave Marshall 107. I will type again to everyone. Go to paulev.com slash Dave Marshall 107. So that is where you will go. What do you know about the joint memo circular of the Department of Health and the Commission on Higher Education on the gradual reopening of campuses for limited face-to-face? And let's try to check. I chatted where to respond. Open paulev.com slash Dave Marshall 107. Anything that you know about it. If you just read it, just type, I just read it, but I did not really read the entire provision of the CMO. Let's try how many of you here are familiar with that memorandum, that joint memorandum circular from the Department of Health and the Commission on Higher Education. I wonder, only medical. I saw one answer here. Only medical related courses will have limited face to face. That's really correct. No, and there are very specific courses identified there in the CMO. What else? I saw also the allied health sciences. Let me stop my sharing and share the result. Allied health sciences. What else? The joint MC from is for medical related field will have limited face to face. Allied health sciences only. What about the others? What's your answer into this? So far, while waiting, hi to 131 participants for this webinar. and I hope I could get their feedback or responses. Again, to answer, go to the one I chatted on the box and answer the question, what do you know about the joint memo circular of Department of Health and the Commission on Higher Education on the gradual reopening of campuses for limited face-to-face? Anyone? Laboratory classes. Better if you can post it in the poll everywhere so that we can share it to the rest. Is for medical, for allied, for health related course. What else? No? What else? What do you know about it? Limited number of students. That's related to class size, or that is actually in consonance also to the IATF in terms of not allowing a congregation in an activity. What do you know about limited face-to-face? I don't care, sir, because I am in the engineering. I am in the IT. All I know is that is only for the medical courses. Let's Okay, let me stop. Some actually respond via private and some also pointed here on the chat box. I have not read it, but I heard that it is for allied sciences. Yes, I actually presume that not all of us really gone through page by page the memorandum. It's actually a 64 page, I think. Yeah, 64 page of policies and guidelines on the implementation of the gradual opening for the limited face to face. Now, why I started that way? Let me go back to my screen and go to my slide share slide PowerPoint show. Okay, what's the mandate all about? You can actually download this, the guidelines and the gradual opening of campuses of higher education institutions for limited face-to-face classes during the COVID-19 pandemic. And the guidelines, the main objective of the guideline is to serve as a guide for any higher education institution intending to hold limited face-to-face classes during this pandemic, and take note and are willing to assume the responsibilities for the reopening of their campuses based on their capability to comply with health and safety protocols, retrofit their facilities with emphasis, retrofit their facilities, and to get the support of their stakeholders. Support from their stakeholders, that is basically approval from the parents, which later on you will come to realize that there should be support from the stakeholders. You are correct. This is really for the joint memorandum circular is in support for the academics, the allied, in particular, the medicine, nursing, medical technology, medical laboratory science, physical therapy, midwifery, and public health. Let me cite um, the very important provisions in this memorandum, which has implication, no, which have implication to pedagogical considerations as we prepare for the limited face-to-face. The subject or courses under this priority shall be allowed for face-to-face delivery are delimited to specialized laboratory courses or hospital-based clinical clerkship, internship, practicum, including clinical rotations for postgraduate medical interns. Another, Face to face in this memorandum is defined or pertains to restricting the number of students to attend face to face classes in campus in any given day based on the degree programs in a rotational or cyclical student shifting or rotating schedule. Another provision that will also help us um, in the preparation of our curriculum. Limited face-to-face classes not mandatory. It is within the discretion of the HEIs to decide when they intend to conduct limited face-to-face. HEIs also may opt not to conduct limited face-to-face classes but shall continue to implement FL or the flexible learning. If the student prefers to do flexible learning during the pandemic, the HEI shall permit and let the student take the face-to-face classes whenever possible without prejudice to readmission and maximum residency. In other words, it's not compulsory. If the student would want, if say for example, parents would not allow their children or their ward perhaps to go to face to face because they are still scared of the COVID, then we cannot demand physical presence of these students in the classroom. Another provision that has implication also in pedagogical consideration. Minimum physical distance in HEI should be 1.5 meters. This is actually in response to the retrofitting of the activities that there should be transparent in our table between the students and the teacher. And of course, we have to go back to the minimum requirement or when to consider as a congregation or a group for a certain activity. More so, aged 20 years old and above and or determined by CHED IATF subject to the approval of the president. And if that is 20 years old, these are third year and fourth year students, assuming that they started first year at the age of 18 years old. On the other hand, also, the reopening, this CMO also allows schools no, to attend or to visit the school to do some flexible learning activities and have approved appointment from their HEIs to one is pick up learning materials, submit academic requirements, consultation, access to learning facilities for a limited time, and there is actually provision for the library in this CMO, defend their thesis, take final examinations, of course, with all the precautions and some safe health and safety protocols that should be observed by the students. I wonder if you hear also that there are more courses to be allowed for the face-to-face as defined or as to be declared by the Commission on Higher Education. How many of you here knows the next courses to be allowed or next program, the set of programs to be allowed for the limited face-to-face after allied as declared by, as pronounced by the Commission on Higher Education? IT and engineering, IT related courses. Yes, that is really true because accordingly, engineering, IT, industrial technology, and maritime related courses are the next or under study or under investigation for the possible opening or gradual opening for a limited face-to-face. But for sure, because many of you here are from the education department, we are also affected into this. Even if we are in the education, we are in the arts and sciences in particular. because there might be students, or if you are a service unit or a service, you are teaching a service courses or a subject, then it will also imply that you will be involved in this limited face to face. Say for example, you are an English teacher and part to sit in a dissertation or in a thesis, because IATF or the memorandum allows us to do oral presentations for thesis and final defenses. Okay. When I read this, there are many challenges and opportunities that I observed from this joint memorandum circular of the Department of Health and the Commission on Higher Education. And these challenges and opportunities it's up to the higher education on how we are going to translate or contextualize these challenges and opportunities for us to go on or move on to the next level of our technology integration and or slash the flexible learning implementation. But I wanted only to focus that has really pedagogical implication that will affect in achieving the learning outcomes of our subject or of our courses. The first one is on class size. There are many scenarios, just assuming that all degree programs will be allowed for a limited face-to-face. And there are many scenarios into this, considering that this is not compulsory. They're only aged only 20 years old and above. It should not be no more than 10 in a class, and there should be barriers, transparent barriers, and etc. Some of the scenarios that I imagine of the class size are many, no? Just before I will explain one by one, I will show to you some of the challenges that I feel should be prioritized by any teachers, by any stakeholders in the higher education institutions. Class size, instructional designing, delivery, assessment, and the class-based continuity plan. Let's discuss this one by one. For class size and all of this, because we are in this emergency shift from face-to-face to online and fully online to blended learning, we can do actually a reverse engineering or the backward model in the technology integration process from micro going to the macro level. On class size, so come to think of it, these are the possible scenarios that may affect pedagogical and some administrative and academic component policies and guidelines. Some scenarios. What if in my class there are less face-to-face number, there are lesser number of face-to-face students, and there are many students who will go online. In other words, their parents did not allow them to go face-to-face. Another scenario to reflect, or what if I have many students for face-to-face but few students for online class? I am referring to one class, one section in particular. What if I have 100% face-to-face students? How am I going to schedule this if limited number is a requirement? Rotations. How are we going to do our syllabus into this? What kind of activities into this? What if I have 100% fully online students? Oh, that's fine, sir. Anyway, I am ODL expert already. I did my flexible learning, full online distance learning. Okay lang na siya, no? Okay lang. But what if I have multiple sections and varied engagement? One section will say all of us will go face to face. Another section will say all of us will go online because our parents did not allow us. I don't have answer yet into this, but these are the considerations. My office is studying this on how we could develop what is best for our university. and to our colleagues in the other institutions, I want you to rethink this also, especially the administrator, on how are we going to implement this kind of mechanism. Okay. Next, preparation. What about the instructional designing? What will happen? Do I have to prepare two different content or formats? Do I have to prepare? Do I have to prepare my materials for both face-to-face and the online? Do I have to prepare um, video recordings only for face-to-face and for the online? Can I use that video in my face-to-face? Things like those. Okay, because instructional designing takes a lot of time actually in the whole technology integration process. Uh, what about in the delivery? No? And then during the delivery, I presented to you the different scenarios. Come to think of it, you should know what are the different modalities or strategies in terms of synchronicity. Are you going to do synchronous while having face-to-face with the while having a class with the face-to-face students? Are you going to have a screen or real time, a Zoom or Google Meet, so that other students who are at their home can participate also? Do you like to do that way? Or let's just do asynchronous. I will do face to face, and then I will just record my face to face and then just publish it for my online students. Are you going to do that? So there are several pedagogical consideration in this kind of delivery method. I like bichronous, sir. I want synchronous within asynchronous or asynchronous within synchronous. But the question is, how are we going to do that, and how are we going to set it up in our learning management system and at the same time in our syllabus? Things like those. Or I don't want to make my life complicated. I just wanted to have the web enabled format. That means face to face, and then there is internet connectivity. Just look at me on the web and that's it, because all assessment are to be done face to face or on a rotational or in a scheduled or in a self-paced format. That's also the delivery. But the most tasking part actually according to studies is the assessment. No, assessment. What about the rubrics? There are many. I saw some arguments on the limited face-to-face. A student asked, so meaning po ba ma'am na kaming mga online students would have a different level of learning compared to those in the face-to-face? Questions like those. How are we going, what are our mechanisms to ensure that achievement outcomes of the face-to-face students and outcomes of the online students are of the same level, considering that delivery and assessment are done in different modes? What about our rubrics? Is it the same quantification and qualifiers for our face-to-face and our online? What about the achievement of the learning outcomes? If we say make a blog, are we going to implement that to our face-to-face students? Why not allowing them to just utter or speak the words or discuss inside the classroom? Are you going to the same to use the same learning outcomes for all? I understand if you will scan the limited face-to-face, there is modified learning. There are modified learning outcomes stipulated into that, and who knows, it will be applicable also to all degree programs, things like that. What about the order thinking skill? Are we going to have the same learning taxonomy for both face-to-face students and the online students? Again, with the assumption that the preparation is different, the delivery is different, and others. And and the most compelling issue under assessment is the grading system. Are we going to follow the same grading system for face-to-face and for online? Okay? Are we going to uh, what if you have a criterion about oral presentation? Is that the same measurement of your oral recitation with the face-to-face and your online? What about the assessment? Are you going to do in the assessment, and when we say grading system, in terms of modality, what about or what will happen during final exam? So all online lang ba? Or the face-to-face will take the exam face-to-face and the online students will take the online or the quiz in the MySoul for Siliman or for any learning management system? Are you going to the same set, use the same set of questions for both students? So these are some questions that I think we have to work together and revisit our syllabus in order for us to be ready with the kind of face-to-face or limited face-to-face that we want to go on. And the last that I see as I browse also on the memorandum is all of us teachers having a declared class to have a class-based continuity plan. I understand one of the requirement actually before we could open is the learning continuity of the department of the university. But what about the learning continuity plan in the class? Or what if during the face-to-face, one of your students, one of your student is suspected and he or she has to be quarantined? Of course, you cannot continue meeting the face-to-face and you prepared that already in your syllabus. What will happen? So we should be able to prepare our class-based continuity plan. It's like alternate A. If this topic and along the way, pwera, no, sana hindi mangyari, of course. But that's part. That's part of our in these unprecedented times that we do not know the future. We do not know what will happen on the next day. So we have to prepare. This class-based, I call this class-based continuity plan. It has to be incongruent also with the learning continuity plan of the program of the department of the college or for the entire university. This is an assurance that what will happen if there is a need to stop the face-to-face in the middle or after 14 days because of quarantine issue. Okay? So that means that the face-to-face have to go back to the online. So, but we have to be ready with that. No, it has to be stipulated in our syllabus that in case of this scenario, this outline or this will be the series of events para maging prepared tayo. Okay? Now, from these challenges and opportunities, with all these challenges, let's try to translate this into opportunity for us to think and be open-minded and go back again to the principle of flexible learning. After all, this limited face-to-face is actually anchored on the flexible learning that the Commission on Higher Education is promoting. Let's try to revisit flexible learning. This is one of the most popular model or framework of flexible learning, and it is actually divided. All stakeholders in the academic institutions are actually represented. This part, well, this for the administration, institutional agility, learner's choice, but I wanted to highlight on this one, which actually the focus of the shift from face-to-face to the flexible learnings dash ODL, or the online distance learning, like for the case of Siliman, that we shifted from face-to-face to fully online. This time, we will focus now on the other quadrant, the other pie, which is on the pedagogical approaches with emphasis on personal learning, inclusive and lifelong learning, independent and collaborative learning. And it is actually called as a balanced um, pragmatism kind of pedagogical approach. Okay. Now, when we talk about flexible learning, we know also that online learning is only one. This is actually emphasized by the Commission Higher Education, that when they promoted flexible learning, it doesn't mean purely online, doesn't mean ODL, it doesn't mean online distance learning, because there are many forms. In the case of Seliman University, we are into online distance learning. We are not modular, and we are not just simply go into the distance learning. We emphasize on the online component. Now, in the online learning designs, we know also that there are many options that we have to consider. From face-to-face to online, we focus the modality on the fully online. But if we are going to interpret in my own interpretation on the limited face-to-face, or toward the gradual reopening, no? Reopening of our classes, is gonna be the blended learning part. Blended learning, and there are many literature also in terms of the distribution, how blended is blended. It could be over 50% online, it could be less than 50% offline or in face-to-face. Web-enabled face-to-face, this is also one of the modality, but this can be incorporated in or during the face-to-face, which I will explain further later. In terms of synchronicity of the communication, is blended because we wanted synchronous and asynchronous, or the term now during the pandemic is the bichronous, whether it's synchronous within asynchronous or a synchronous within asynchronous. So it's blended, or it's a blend of both. So pacing, self-pace, open entry, open exit, class pace, and for blended, what is advisable is class pace with some self-pace type of learning. Then you have the usual pedagogy, but for the first, I think, is more on the laboratory or skill-based type of pedagogy. The role of assessment, this is the one I mentioned to you. The role of assessment in a blended learning. What will happen? Are you going to administer the quiz purely online, even if there are face-to-face? What about the feedbacking? Are you going to do that in face-to-face, or what about the online also? Is it face-to-face, or you will do real-time synchronous activity in an online environment? Instructor role online, no? Active instruction, or do you want to apply small presence online and emphasize only on the face-to-face but web enabled? No, you can actually do that. Student role online. Are the online students will be listening or reading only, or either when it comes to groupings, are you going to include the online students in the group with the face-to-face students? What type of technology available into that? Uh, are we capable of designing such kind of collaborative with peer? Or is your collaboration limited only with the nature of modality? Pang face-to-face ka, pang online group ka. But if you are going to do that, are you going to prepare two different instructions for them? No? And the source of feedback, the one that mentioned, automated, teacher-oriented, or peer related. Now, whether fully online or blended learning, let's go back to the basic that when we integrate technology, we have to consider technological, the pedagogical content, and the knowledge. Or this is the TPAC model. This is very popular when we integrate digital technology in our teaching and learning. So that means that at the heart, no, at the heart of the TPAC framework is the complex interplay of the three major forms of knowledge: the content, the pedagogy, and the technology. And we have to make sure that there is balance in the integration of the three primary forms of knowledge. I'm now on the blended learning, and let us connect that to flexible learning, to online learning, and preparations of a blended learning. What is blended learning? No? Anyone on the chat box? Can you chat? What do you know about blended learning? Let me check. Hi, Ruby from House Aklan this time. What is blended learning? What do you know about blended learning? Can you type on the chat box? What is a blended learning? A combination of online, no, online and face-to-face. Combination of different, I like that. Combination of different modalities. No, hi, Ma'am Rose from Lorraine. Composition of all types of learning modalities, sync and asynchronous classes also from Melanie, Ma'am Melanie. Blended learning is basically referred to as a hybrid type of learning. It's a hybrid learning, which actually you said it combines traditional face-to-face classroom instruction with online learning. It is with online learning. In some reference, they use and online learning, traditional face-to-face classroom instruction with online learning. That's the definition of hybrid learning before COVID. No, that's the usual, that's the universal definition of the blended learning. Common components of a blended learning is e-learning, face-to-face workshops, scenarios like digital or offline, workbooks, the same, digital or offline, podcasts, simulators, online forums. Because again, uh, face-to-face with online learning. It's not that I will do face-to-face and then stop, then another activity for online learning because it's with online learning. Okay, now let me in the next few slides, I think I have to introduce this different learning model because this will help us understand on what kind of model that we should integrate in our classroom. The first one is the so-called station rotation model. The station rotation model allows students to rotate through stations on a fixed schedule, where at least one of the stations is an online learning station. And this model is most common in elementary schools because teachers are already familiar rotating in centers or stations. Okay, how many are elementary teachers here? Raise your or give me a hand, a raise of your hand for elementary teachers. Elementary teachers. Okay, that's station rotation. No, I'm tempted to play the video, but for the purposes of time, we can just skip that. Another is we can try lab rotation model. What is a lab rotation model? A lab rotation model, like a station rotation, allows students to rotate through stations on a fixed schedule. However, in this case, online learning occurs in a dedicated computer lab. This model allows for flexible scheduling arrangements with teachers and other paraprofessionals and enables schools to make use of existing laboratories. If you can see, these are the teachers, this is the teacher and the teacher, and if you can see, this is face-to-face part, while the direct instruction is done either online or not online based on rotational schedule. And this is also most effective if you have a lot of working spaces. Take note that in the limited face-to-face, we have to retrofit our classroom enough to accommodate, not defined as a group or a congregation in a certain activity. Another model that you can also explore is the individual rotation model. Individual rotation model allows students to rotate through stations both on individual schedules set by teacher or the software algorithm. Never mind the software algorithm, but there are tools actually that can reassign or assign students. Unlike other rotation models, students do not necessarily rotate to every station, and they rotate only to the activities scheduled on their playlist. We have to evaluate, is this applicable in the limited face-to-face? Is this applicable in the COVID time? No, this is considered as a disruptive kind of model because this is most divergent from traditional classroom, and it can help to experiment with this design when a student's current alternative to learning is is nothing at all. So in other words, we literature also urge that educators to launch this kind of model in untested subjects or courses otherwise not on offering at your school, especially for general education and the most established courses or subjects. Next is the flipped classroom. So I guess we are familiar, especially at Seliman University, you are familiar into this because our ODL, one of our framework in our ODL, uh, strategy is on the flipped classroom. The flipped classroom, the traditional relationship between class time and homework. Students learn at home via online course and lectures, and teachers use class time for teacher guide practice or project. And usually, this model enables us or teachers to use class time for more than delivering traditional lecture. So all the lectures, all the lower thinking skill type of activity are done at home, no, while the face-to-face are done for face-to-face activities are reserved for knowledge deepening discussions, and some follow-ups of among our students. Another model is which is also popular in the blended learning is the so-called flex. In the diagram, the flex model lets students move on fluid schedules among learning activities according to their needs. According to their needs. Online learning is the backbone of this kind of model, meaning yung pinaka-majority of your activities are done online. Teachers provide support and instruction on a flexible as needed basis while students work through course curriculum and content. And this model can give students a high degree of control over their learning. So that is the flex model. Again, according to their needs. It's not class-based in nature, but there is class-based plus self-paced type of instruction. Are we ready into this? Like in our LMS, are we integrating personalized learning strategy? No, because that is part of the flex model. Um, According to research that I read, flex model, there was a study yielded a positive gain in the student progress, both summative and formative level. Why? Because the positive indicator into this is students are allowed to go on to the next level according to his or her needs. No, so this is a very good model also when we integrate or when we follow blended learning. But it requires a lot of preparations. It requires a lot of ready-made materials, ready-made assessment. Because what if in a group of 20 students, five of them will escalate like two times faster than the majority? Are you allowing them to go on to the next learning outcome? Things like those. That is flex type of blended learning. The other one is sounds funny. It's actually a la carte. The a la carte model enables students to take an online course with an online teacher of record in addition to other face-to-face courses, which often provide students with more flexibility over their schedules. A la carte model courses can be a great option when schools cannot provide particular learning opportunities such as elective or some other advanced placement or elective courses, making it one or more popular models in blended high schools. And the a la carte model is also used especially for again for just for um, majority according to study more into the elective courses. But why not, if we are going if we think that that is also applicable in our institution based on the resources and based on the available technologies that we have, why not? Okay. Then we also have the so-called enriched virtual. Enriched virtual model is an alternative to full-time online school that allows students to complete the majority of coursework online at home or outside the school, but attend school for required face-to-face learning sessions with a teacher. Unlike with the flipped classroom, enriched virtual programs usually don't require daily attendance. Such programs may only require twice weekly attendance, for example. Why? Because these are options also for students who cannot come to class on face to face, which is more or less similar to the limited face to face that we are imagining. Um, Another strategy also, the blended synchronous and asynchronous online course delivery that I'd mentioned. Blended learning is much more than a convergence of face-to-face and this is the one I'd mentioned to you that a literature also say that pwede siyang rotational in nature, face-to-face, and then separate ang online. But in this diagram, this will actually tells us from the different models that I presented in the prior slides, we can boil it down actually to six no common models. And the flipped classroom and very specific model is a 1 hour asynchronous or 2 hours synchronous. That is for a 3 unit or a 3 hours lecture class. No, you can do that 1 hour synchronous or the 2 hours asynchronous. You can do also guided laboratory 3 hour synchronous that students or groups also work independently. So there is technology there. This is 3 hours synchronous. Um, Another that we can do also is the integrated lab time. 1 hour synchronous, 2 hours asynchronous, final hour synchronous. We can actually do this in the online in the ODL. This is what sometimes we do at Seoul office. We determine like in a 3 or in a 5 hour, we we divided our time. Like if we have a synchronous, the one I mentioned to you, bichronous, synchronous, and then break, there is a synchronous time that they can do, and then we will meet again for the final hour for the oral presentation and some other stuff to do during the synchronous activity. We can do like for capstone and independent learning, we can also do 2 hours synchronous with access to faculty support and 1 hour synchronous. It's really up to us on how we are going to divide our synchronicity or total engagement with our students. Project-based courses, suggested for a project-based courses, 2 hours synchronous and another 2 hours asynchronous, or at least equal. No, like if that is a 6 hour class, at least equal 3 hours for asynchronous and 3 hours for synchronous. Or if that is 3 units, 1.5, 1.5. The self-directed course, this is the one I'd mentioned to you, the self-pacing type of modality is a purely asynchronous, no? Purely asynchronous, self-directed, because you don't meet, especially you don't meet because the system automatically open and lock, and then allow the student to escalate to the next exercise, or to bar or to stop the activity within a certain period of time, according to your specified learning outcomes or objective. So self-directed course is purely a synchronous type of delivery. Okay, now let's try to boil down the so many models that I'd shared with you. The common is actually there are only four, just to give you an idea: rotation model, the flex model, and the self-blended model, or the self-paced, and the last one is the enriched virtual model. So flex model, I'd share that with you that students spend more time learning basic content online, and this is more into the online platform. While the self-blended model, or sometimes called as the a la carte model, give the students an option to pick and choose courses into this. And this is commonly found actually in the high school, no, in the high school level. At what that's what the study shows, which is more effective in the high school. And enriched virtual model, this is also, it differs from full-time virtual school because in this model, face-to-face is required. Okay. Now, with all of this, let us try to complicate our life. And there is a new and popular model now, which many instructional designers and strategists said that what is fitting for the COVID-19 pandemic time. And this is what they call high flex. No? High flex is a type of blended learning that combines elements of both online and classroom-based learning, but they take this as hybrid courses to a new level of flexibility. It's not an ordinary type of blended learning. It's high flex because it combines so many things: technology, the content. Remember, technology, content, and knowledge. Uh, Common mechanism into this: student choice. Yes, it can be because in our limited face-to-face, students can opt not to attend face-to-face. No, can we allow in person? Yes, we can allow in person, synchronous instruction and discussion. But the question is, what are we going to do with in terms of the total engagement with our face-to-face and into our online? There are so many things to consider actually when we transition our syllabus from fully online to a high flex or to a blended type of learning in general. Many also suggest that when we do high flex type of model, we can do this, no, it's whether uh the online component and the face to face, the number here, the percentage here are just the suggestions, but the literature, actually what the literature is telling us is we can have an equal distribution of our online and face to face, and in the hybrid also, those challenges that I presented to you, the assessment, the preparation, are treated as one preparation. But it's really a big task. It needs so much preparation and full understanding in terms of pedagogical and instructional designing in relation to the achievement of the learning outcome of a particular subject. To visualize what's a high-flex type of learning, for fully in person, we know that students can come into the class, while blended learning, they're in the class, there is a schedule that they can do face to face, and at the same time with the use of the gadget, meaning both the blended part, I mean the technology, the virtual and the face to face are both in schedule, while the hybrid is a combination of additional accessibility and platforms, like it could be mobile, uh, it is 24/7, and it has, of course, there is face-to-face component also. To differentiate that with the high flex is really more on student oriented, meaning students have the are being prioritized is very student outcomes or student led type of environment, unlike with the old hybrid thing is uh kung ano lang yung dineclare ng institutions is purely class based in nature, while the high flex is there is a combination of self directed learning, while the fully online is also a different story, which that's what we do during 2020, 2021. Now, let's put COVID-19 in the equation. Um, let's put COVID-19 in the equation and incorporate that in the high flex model that we know based on literature. When I say let's put COVID in the picture is let's try to understand the limitations set by our government in the limitations in relation to health and safety protocols, because after all of these, this limited face to face, as they say, as we go on, as we move forward, this gonna be the new normal in teaching and learning, the flexible learning for us. For many institutions here, we opted to do the use of technology, the use of digital technology on how we define flexibility in our teaching and learning. Let's revisit guidelines, and let's watch and wait and see the succeeding guidelines on how we define limited face-to-face in the classroom. Who knows? It's not anymore rotational. Who knows that like for a GE that is possible to offer in a limited face to face, like we can use rotational, we can use high flex, but all we have to do is to put all those limitations, the health and safety protocol, to the pedagogy that we are trying to develop in our classroom. So let us start the transition, no? Let us start the transition. I know it was not easy last school year. I could still recall almost every day we come to the office while the city is in quarantine. Uh, our colleague continue to train for us to be ready with the transition from face to face to fully online. We were there, and we are actually caught in the middle of nowhere where we do not know what to start and how to start in particular. And for sure, it was a challenging journey from recalibrating our syllabus from a face-to-face that was crafted, formulated for how many years to deliver it online, and in just few months we were able to convert that into a fully online type of delivery. Okay. um, I would like to ask the audience here, especially to those who are doing online, no, like for our university, Siliman, what is now the level of your improvement in terms of your literacy or in terms of your online learning skill? And I will switch on the poll so that you can answer. No, what is the level of your improvement in terms of your online learning skill? Are you now, is your ODL literacy highly improved, moderately improved, with little improvement, or no improvement at all? It's nice to see that there are 24 and moving participants here said that they are now highly improved. It is really true that because of COVID-19, acquiring literacy skills or digital technology skills has been expedited because we have to learn, no, na fast track. We have to learn the use of video conferencing tools. I could recall sometimes we argue in I'm coming in the IT some before in our professional org. Sometimes we always argue, can we do video conferencing, but not all are adept into it, no, of having a video conferencing. But now uh, easy na lang to have a training or to have a workshop to be delivered via live. So let me share with you the result and of the poll and share the result. And this is the result now. Um, 56, more than half of our participants said that they are improved moderately in terms of their online distance learning skill. And I am sure also that acquiring or having this improvement was not easy. Tama? Tama ba? Tama ba, Dr. Naranjo? Sorry for calling you. Tama ba, Dr. Naranjo? Shifting from face-to-face to fully online was not easy.
It was not
You know,
easy, but with your training, we are so thankful. We are highly improved already, Doc Marshall.
thank you, Dr. Naranjo. That's really true. We can feel here in the office, we can feel that our colleagues, no, designing the curriculum, the transition itself was not easy. From the choice of from recalibrating the learning outcomes, the choice of technology, the choice of delivery model, the choice of technology in general, with of course common denominator problem and the Miss Universe problem, internet accessibility, platform, and all of those stuff. Okay, but because of our resiliency, perhaps, as mentioned by Dr. Naranjo, we were able to survive. We just ended our school year 2020-2021. And just like any other challenges, because we did it, and there is now a new that we are going to prepare, and that is fully online fully online to the limited face to face. It's the same transition process we go through into that. I highly suggest that let's revisit again what we did from face to face to fully online, and let's do another cycle of the transition process. Look at the syllabus and so on and so forth. Mom Alfie will give us a general things to do on how to start our preparation or our transition process. Before I will end, let me let me share with you that there is no one size fits all solution type of blended learning model. The most important thing here is we know that there is a learning outcome. We know that we have students. We know that students have option whether to go on face to face or not. We know that there is COVID, and that is actually the most challenging component in finding the best model or finding the most appropriate model that we can use in the upcoming limited face to face. And of course, I think the best solution into this is let us COVIDize our blended learning pedagogy. Daghang salamat sa inyong pagminaw. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll give the floor to Ma'am Alfie, and immediately after that we will have an open forum for discussion. If you have questions, please feel free to type your questions on the chat box. You can send it either to everyone or directly to me, and I can read your questions. Ma'am Alfie?
Hi, sir. Okay, so